So it's just you and me, huh?
How's it going? I am just letting everyone into the meeting. We'll get it started in just a second.
Okay.
We are just going to get everyone brought into the meeting and we'll go ahead and get started in a second.
Hello, this is Alan.
Thanks, Alan, for being here. I am we're going to give everybody about one more minute to get on, and
Awesome.
then we'll get started.
Awesome. Hopefully the weather holds, right?
Yeah. Beautiful weather this week.
So can we still schedule like practices on some of the fields on Saturday, or are they all taken?
Yep, we'll get to that. Talk about all of these things.
Cool.
So while we're kind of waiting for the last people jumping on, my name is Dustin Jackson. I'm the recreation coordinator, taking over adult softball and girls softball for Linda. You guys probably, any returning teams knew Linda. She was around for 30 plus years. She did a great job. So I've got some big shoes to fill, but we are just going to go ahead and get started. And let's see, actually give me 1 second. Okay. Still got a lot of people coming in the waiting room. So just we'll do this in 1 sec. Okay. All right, let's just go ahead and get this show on the road. So I've got Kevin Bybee with me. He is the recreation manager. He'll be helping with chats. If there's any questions, let's just save questions till the end, and then we can kind of have an open forum. If there's anything urgent or a chat that you need to get answered during the meeting, Kevin will be addressing those, but we'll also have a little session at the very end over that. So got a little presentation. If you guys hopefully got the email we sent out with the schedule, the coaches packet, and with including the rules, the weather policy, the concussion policy, we'll go ahead and get started. The one thing that we will have you pull open while we're in the meeting is the rules. We'll go over that towards the end. But can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Hopefully. Okay, great. Okay. All right, so we're excited to start off another spring season of adult softball. Glad to have so many teams coming back this year. I'm sure everybody wants to get out and play. We're excited to get it going. We've been actually running all of our programs through since the fall last year with COVID and everything. But we appreciate the participation and everyone's help with distancing and masks and all of that through COVID to make sure we can have successful season. So that is one of the first things that in this meeting, we'll go over the COVID policies and guidelines. Then we'll talk about the weather policy with the rain out hotline, our concussion policy, further league information and important details to be aware of, the rules, and then you guys all got the schedules that we sent out, and we'll go over some questions at the end. Okay, so the COVID guidelines for Sandy City, currently we're in a moderate level, which still means that we still have the mask mandate, social distancing, and we're aware that there's a lot of people who've gotten their vaccine. We're glad that that happened. Unfortunately, we still all have to follow the guidelines with COVID until we hear otherwise. We know that the state mask mandate is ending the end of this week, but we've gotten, I guess, we've heard from the county that they're still going to have a lot of their mask protocols in place. So we still have to follow that. So we will let everyone know if things change and stuff, but essentially players on the field can play without a mask on, and coaches, any players off the field, not in the game, will need to wear a mask and distance as much as possible. We will be cleaning the dugouts between games. And so we just ask teams to exit the dugouts as soon as the game ends so we can get in there and kind of sanitize it. And we do have the coaches that will need to conduct a symptom check with each of their players before the games begin. So if you can just do a verbal check with your players, our staff will be checking with the coaches to make sure everyone's healthy and good to go in order to play. And yeah, we'll keep you posted with what we kind of get further guideline from Salt Lake County. We're not sure exactly what they're going to do, but we know that the county buildings and everything are still going to require masks to enter. But with the outside programs, we'll keep you updated if anything changes from the mask and distancing. Moving on to the weather policy. So our weather policy, we obviously playing softball and outside, we have a lot of metal and things that attract lightning. Our policy is if we see or hear thunder within 6 miles, which can be pretty close. It's actually from our office to about the opening of the canyon on the east side, Little Cottonwood Canyon. If we see or hear it, we have to stop the games. And so we need your help. We'll have the umpires and the staff tell the coaches, and we just need to clear the fields if there's lightning. And if there's, for weekday games, usually we have like a 30-minute rule that we do if we have lightning, and that's kind of for Saturday games. For our weekday games, if we have any kind of time that we have to call the game for lightning or high winds as well, sometimes there's high wind warnings and we cancel games, then we cancel that game for the day. If you play up to 4.5 innings and then there's lightning and everything, that game is considered played and we will cancel the rest of it, but we won't look to reschedule that unless it's, the beginning of the game, you didn't really get much time to play. And then as far as rainouts, everyone's going to want to program this phone number into their phone. We update the rainout hotline at 4:00 on weekdays. So the phone number, the last bullet is 801-561-3333. 7009. And then you press 2 for Parks and Recreation and 3 for adult softball. That'll let you know. And we just ask the captains only or coaches to call this number and let your team know about it. We don't want to inundate the phone line so no one can get through. But if you can call at around 4 o'clock, that number, and then let your team know if the games have been rained out, that would be best. We will plan to try and schedule rainouts at the end of the season, but yeah, if it gets canceled or whatever, the hotline will be updated. Okay. Moving on to our concussion policy. So a concussion is a brain injury that's caused by a bump or blow. It can change the way that you think and the way that your brain normally works. So it's kind of a big deal. We have this concussion policy. It's mostly meant, and the requirement that was put forth in the concussion policy is meant for kids under 18, but of course we want everyone to be a part of this. If there are any kind of issues with that, we have to pull them from the game, and we need a medical note from a qualified healthcare provider sent to us in order to allow people who may have concussions to come back to play, just so everyone can stay safe as much as possible. Baseball and softball, it's kind of a high risk game, and so there's a lot of potential getting hit by the ball or tripping and head to ground contact, but we try and mitigate that as much as we can with our adjusted rules as far as like going into home and other things, but we take that really seriously. So be aware of that, and if there is anything, if the more contact and communication we can get from you to get the required medical leeway or medical leave for people to continue to play, that would be great. So moving into the important league information. So the season begins next week. Games start as early as April 12th on Monday. So you can set up practices. You want to set that up with your team directly. You can call our office. We have limited places and fields to practice on, but we've designated Saturdays to be the practice day. So first come, first serve. When you call our office, you can designate an hour that we let you sign up for practices. And that's on Saturdays or through the weekend. We have games that go Monday through Friday, so we don't really have time during the week to hold practices or to open that up. If there are other places that you guys know of that you're able to get into a field and have a practice, that's more than welcome to do that on your own. But just for our fields, it's mostly Saturday and Sunday if you're scheduling with us. Another thing is, don't use the restrooms inside the indoor pavilions at Bicentennial and Lone Peak Park. If the building's open, it's a customer's reserved it. So we have outside restrooms that are at all the parks, usually at the pavilion or the scores tower. If you'll please clean up after yourselves as well, including in the dugouts, and throw away any garbage in the designated bins. We'll be sanitizing, like I said, the dugouts between games. And so if there's any loose garbage or equipment or anything, just make sure you grab all that. So parking also, you park at your own risk at the parks. Please don't park in the red zones and don't leave valuables visible in the car. Leave anything in your trunk if you can, so that nothing happens during the games or anything. And this is a recreation softball league, so we're asking that sportsmanship is a big deal for us. We just want to make sure that everyone is having fun, is here to just enjoy their time, and we hope that message and that environment is held by everyone. Rosters and waivers need to be turned into the recreation office or the scorekeeper before your first game. So we need everybody. We have these rosters that we sent out in the email that we'll need you to fill out. Have everybody fill out their first and last name, sign it, and and put their information and have that to either the office or the scorekeeper before your first game. Anyone under 18 will need to get a parent signature or guardian to allow them to play, but this is, an adult league. And so, so we need those turned in. You guys all got the game schedules. The first team is listed as the home team and will take the third base dugout. If the team has a double header and they're already playing in a different dugout, they'll just keep that same dugout for their next game. Okay. We did have to combine some of the leagues. So the co-ed middle and upper leagues on Tuesday and Wednesday nights, we combined those. And so we have teams coming from some parks and other teams from other parks. And so there's 2 parks involved in those schedules. So just be aware of the park that you're playing that night if you're in the co-ed middle or upper league on Tuesday or Wednesday nights. But most of the games will be played at your designated field that you originally signed up for. Okay. If you guys will all open up your rules. So we're just gonna go over a few of the rules. There's a lot of new teams and a lot of returning teams. You probably have seen this diagram. This is kind of something we implemented last year as far as with the pitchers and calling strikes, and then also just for safety reasons. We'll talk about this diagram in just a second. But so in your rules on the email I sent you, number 1, so the rosters, you may not exceed 25 players. You can have up to 25 on your team and they all need to be on your roster or added. We'll lock the rosters at the end of May. So any kind of additions or anything need to be added before then. And like I said, underage players, 16 to 18-year-olds must have their parents sign a waiver concussion policy form. If there are any females playing in a men's league, they have to follow the men's league rules. And so that, just aware of that. Number 2, with the dugout area, the coaches or umpires shall now allow any other participant, manager, anyone other than a participant, manager, or coach who has signed the offer to be in the dugout. So any kind of ball boys or ball girls or whatever, they have to be at least 18 years or older and part of the team and on the roster to be in the dugout. So we don't want them in there. As much as we can mitigate the commingling, that would be great. Number 3, so games will be 7 innings with no new innings beginning after 55 minutes. To keep the games on schedule, if either team is leading by 15 runs at the end of the 55 minutes, the game will end. And there is a caveat with that. If there's a tie, a game is tied at the end of the regulation, there's a rule with the 7 innings of time expired, the next full inning will use a tiebreaker rule. And you can read about that. Game time. So we will give you a 10-minute grace period if your team's running a little bit late to at least get 7 players at the field. You have to start and end with 7 players at least. And then as the 8 through 12 players number 8 through 12 come in, we can add them to the field and to the game. If you start with your game with 8 to 10 players, we don't allow you to add an 11th or 12th player, late in the game or anything. So 8 to 10 is full, 7 is the minimum that required on the field. If you turn to number 6, we talked about the rainout hotline, and you'll want to program that in for captains to call or coaches. In the middle of that, like I said, so if you've played at least 4.5 innings and the home team is ahead, that game will be considered completely played. If it gets rained out towards the tail end of the game, obviously if it's at the beginning of the game, we'll try to remake that game up. We have a home run rule, number 7. So we'll be using the 1-up home run rule for all leagues except the men's D and the lower D upper E leagues, where they will play with a 2 home run rule adjustment. So what that means is for a team can only hit one more home run than their opponent. So if the home team hits a home run, the away team can hit a home run, and then they can hit one more, so they'll be +1 than the other team. But if any other home runs after that are considered out. So the home team would have to hit 2 more home runs to be up for the away team to hit anymore, if that makes sense. Moving on to rule number 10, the courtesy runners. So 1 courtesy runner per inning can be used. If the courtesy runner is still on base at the time that his or her turn at bat comes up, that spot in the batting order will be an out. Okay, so be aware of that if you're going to have courtesy runners after first base. A male can run for a male, and a female can run for a female in the co-ed programs. Rule number 11, the foul ball rule. This was a rule that I think had been adjusted last year. We just made clarification on this rule. What it is that everyone has 2 strikes and you're out. We don't do 3 strikes, you're out. It's 2 strikes. Male batters will be called out on the second strike, whether the ball is missed or hit as a foul ball. Female batters will get an additional courtesy pitch if the second strike had been hit and ruled a foul ball. If the second strike was missed, females will be called out. So kind of to keep the game moving forward, we have that 2 strike rule. Any protests, teams must notify the umpire or scorekeeper at the field of the intent to protest before the next legal pitch. So any kind of mess ups in the lining, the batting lineup, or anything that you see and want to protest to the umpire, it has to be done before the next pitch. Otherwise, it's unnecessary. So rule number 14, there's no alcoholic beverages allowed at the parks or in the dugouts. So just be aware, obviously water or Gatorade or whatever is okay, but no alcohol. Number 15, players must be listed on the official roster. Make sure to bring your ID just in case, so that we can verify if we need to about rosters. Rule number 16, if a team forfeits, if your team's going to be having a forfeit and you know that a bunch of your players aren't going to be able to make it, please let us know ahead of time and we can try as early as you can, even if it's the day before or the week of or whatever. Let us know ahead of time so we can try and reschedule or adjust games to and also let the other team know that you would have been playing. If a team forfeits more than 2 games, they will lose their priority for returning team the next year, and they may also be ejected from the current league. So just make us aware if you find out if your team is not going to show up and you may have to forfeit. Okay. Rule number 17, insurance. So Sandy Parks and Recreation doesn't cover any way a personal injury or property damage that may occur due to your participation. So any kind of home run or foul shot or something that hits your car, our insurance does not cover that. So you park at your own risk. Highly recommend to park in safe zones that are potentially not going to hit cars or anything with foul balls or home runs. But just to make that clear with everyone. So looking at this diagram on the right, rule number 18, we're going to talk about the black mat that we've added to the home plate. That's used for balls and strikes. So if a legally pitched ball hits any part of the white home plate, it's a ball. If the ball or circumference of the ball hits any part of the black mat, it's a strike. So if the ball hits the white home plate and the black mat at the same time, it will be a ball. The umpires obviously will be making these calls, but this is just to also further help with that situation. The pitch must be a legal pitch, must be released within 5 seconds, and it shall not be delivered less than 5 feet and no more than 10 feet from the ground. Okay, it's saying that I only have a couple minutes left, but I'm going to quickly get through this and then we can go over any questions you may have. The scoring line and commitment line, you'll also see on the diagram. After you pass the commitment line from third base to home, you have to continue home. The scoring line, so coming in, all the runners will actually be running and just running past the scoring line. So runners must touch the scoring line on the ground over it before the catcher touches the white home plate. So the catchers on defense will touch the home plate. The runners will run past the scoring line. So there's no sliding into home or anything like that. If there is an attempt by a defensive team to tag the runner past the commitment line, the runner is automatically safe. So they have to just go to the home base after they've passed the commitment line. Once the runner touches the ground past the commitment line, they must go home. Okay, one more rule clarification about the up the middle rule. So we're doing away with that. If a hard hit ball is directly hit at the pitcher and the pitcher does not have the opportunity to field the ball or protect themselves, the batter will be called out if they actually hit the pitcher. Last year we had kind of an up the middle rule, which caused a lot of issues with a lot of judgment with umpires, and we just want to make things keep everything, you know, as good as possible with less judgment calls. And then as far as the co-ed leagues, the male and females players must alternate in the batting lineup. Okay. And there's no restrictions placed on defensive positions for males and female players. Okay. Is there any questions that anyone has that we can open it up? You might want to unmute yourself that I can address for you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what's the rule with smoking in the dugouts?
So no smoking in the dugouts. You'll need to, you know, excuse yourself from the team. There's park rules with smoking and the distance and stuff.
I'm not a smoker, but like at least 3 of our players have asthma, and we would have people at games like just smoking right next to our dugout, and it's like it says no smoking in the park, and so we're just like.
So if there's issues with that, the best thing that I can do or that I can tell you is to talk to our staff at the field and make them aware of it with the scorekeepers so that they can address that with the people directly.
Okay.
Also just want to put a shout out. We are hiring for scorekeepers. So if anyone knows of anybody looking for a job, or if you want to be involved on another night that you don't play, you can apply at sandy.utah.gov/jobs. And we are still hiring. We can take a couple more scorekeepers throughout our leagues. So we'd appreciate all that. Let me check on the chat. Yeah. Does anybody have a question right now?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So you were just talking about that rule with adding players, like if you have 10 or something like that. Is that just strictly based off of if they aren't already listed on your lineup? So if I have 12 guys listed on my lineup, but 2 of them show up late, they're still okay to play, right?
Yeah. If your team is short and you're playing with less players, and we start the game, you know, with 8 to 10 players, and then the other people come later, you know, they have to be potentially, you know, earlier than later in the game.
Justin,
But if they were already on my lineup,
they're
when I
on your
submitted it.
lineup.
Sorry, there's some feedback coming through. So if they're on your lineup, they should be okay. Just, you know, make sure people aren't coming in like at the tail end of the game trying to add to their batting lineup and stuff. If they're on your roster, then yeah, like everybody has to sign the roster. But if they're on your lineup and they're not present, it would be an out. So.
Right. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
I have a question about subs. So I just want to clarify. So you have your roster, and I know you have to have it sort of locked in at a certain date, but what happens if you have a game where, you need subs and they're not on that roster? Is that still okay to do if they sign the thing, or?
It can exceed 25, so you can continue to
Oh,
add
okay.
extra people throughout the season. Once the rosters are locked at the end of May, there's no more additions to the rosters at that point. That's
Okay.
mostly to protect the playoff games if we have them at the end of the season. If teams are tied for first or something, we're going to have a playoff game just so they're not stacking their team at the last minute.
Hey, Dustin,
Yeah.
are we gonna have an opportunity to have a tournament this year?
So for the adult league, we haven't planned for a tournament. That might be something that we could potentially talk about in the future. But as of for this season, we haven't accounted for anything like that. So we won't have it. It'll just be the 14 games and then we'll be done.
Are you guys planning on doing a fall season too?
Yep.
Sure.
We'll have spring and fall. And registration for that will open up, I think, in July. So let me see if there's anything on the chat that we can address. Or if you had a question that was on the chat, hasn't been addressed, if you can speak up right now.
Yeah, Dustin, you mentioned a 5-second rule for the pitcher. What's the penalty if they take longer?
So that's kind of a ticky-tacky kind of rule. It would be more of like a warning, like, hey, you got to get the pitches out quicker, it's taking you too long or whatever. So that's kind of a call with the umpire judgment call. So. Does any other questions?
I just want to say I appreciate the change to the up the middle rule. Last year it felt too discretionary by the umpires, so it's clear and obvious now. You hit the pitcher, it's an out. If it's up the middle and it was close, it's not. I appreciate that.
Yep.
I have a question.
Thought it was necessary. Yeah.
I have a question. You're talking about the pitcher has 5 seconds to release the ball. How long does the batter have to get to the box when the pitcher's ready to pitch?
That's a rule that I potentially have to look up with uSSSA.com. So I can look that up. If you want to send me an email, I can let you know. We obviously want people to be, up and ready and have their, batter on deck kind of thing, so that we're not delaying the game, but it may be a potential delay if they.
Because I've had in the past, because I was ump for USSSA for 9 years. And once the batter steps into the batter's box and has not called time and the pitcher's ready to pitch, then he's allowed to pitch the ball. My question is, we've had batters step into the batter's box, never call for time, and then the umpires say, oh no, he had time. So we need to clarify how long they have, because there's a lot of times pitchers are ready and batters are scratching their feet, digging a hole into the box and never called for time, and then they get upset when a pitcher throws the ball.
On that side too, if I could just throw in at that too, but there you also have pitchers who are going to throw the ball well before the batter's actually in the box too. So there's got to be a little bit of give and take on that side as well.
I understand that, but there's batters that are in there ready and they're ready to swing, and the pitcher throws the ball, and then the batter will stay in the batter's box, throw the ball back to the pitcher, and the pitcher's ready to pitch, and then they go to pitch and the batter says, I wasn't ready, and they start getting upset.
Yeah,
And
so
they didn't
that
ask for
it's kind of, I think it just comes down to a communication situation and just making people aware of the situation if stuff like that happens. I have less than a minute. I apologize. This is about to end. If there's any further questions you may have, feel free to send me an email. My email's right there. If I didn't get to your question in the chat, I appreciate you guys coming to the coaches meeting. Let me know. Hopefully you guys all got the information. This is recorded. And so we will send a link out if anybody, if you know of any coaches that weren't able to make it to this meeting.
Thanks, Dustin.
Thanks. We'll see you guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Dustin.
you.